Alright, Chapter 2, Fiber Optic Concepts. Upon completion of the Chapter 2, be able to do the following. Understand the nature of the light propagation, discover the electromagnetic theory of the light, discover the property of the light, reflection, refraction, diffusion, absorption, explain how optical fibers transmit light, define the basic optical fiber material properties, describe the rate, mode, and theories of the light propagation along with the optical fibers, the difference between multi-mode optical fibers, explain how optical fibers actuate with this short light signal they have to travel along optical fiber understand the process of the light actuation dispersion. Fiber optic light transmission. Fiber optic deal with the transmission of light energy for the transparent fiber, the optical fiber, the guide for the light depends on the nature of the light, with the structure of the optical fiber. The light wave is the form of the energy moved, the wave motion. Wave motion can be defined with the recurring disturbance advance throughout the space without the use of the physical medium. The fiber optics with the wave motion movement of the light energy through an optical fiber. To fully understand the concept of the wave motion, refer to the Neets module 10 introduction wave propagation transmission lines and antennas. Before we introduce some of the subject light transmission for the optical fibers, further understand the nature of light and properties of the light waves. Propagation of light. The exact nature of the light with the north not fully understood, although the people that have been studying the subject for the many of the centuries in 1700s before the experiment that seemed to be indicated that the light was composed of the particles. In early 1800s, a physician and a physicist Thomas Young showed that the light exhibited wave characters of further experiments of the physicist illuminated James Clerk with the pronounced Clerk Maxwell, collecting four fundamental equations for the complete to describe the behavior of the electromagnetic field. For the James Maxwell deduced the light that was simply with a component of the electromagnetic spectrum. This seems to firmly establish the light in as a wave. In the early 1900s, the interaction of light with semiconductor materials called photoelectric effects could not be explained with the electromagnetic wave theory. The event with the quantum physics successfully explained with the photoelectric effect in terms of the fundamental particles of energy called quanta. Quanta, known as photons, referring to light with the today. We studied light with the consider the many photons propagation of light behave with the continuum of the electromagnetic wave. On the other hand, with the side of the interaction of light with the semiconductors, sort of the detect the quantum physics approach to take the wave veers over the particle to delineate can be addressed in a more formal wave, but it's beyond what they scope detect the special to say the most has been reconciled between the two. The quantum physics with his manual we use both electromagnetic wave, the photon concept of each of the lasers and best match the phenomenon we are studying. The electromagnetic wave energy is the form of the electromagnetic radiation light in similar form of the radiation made up of the move the electrical magnetic force. A simple example of motion similar to these radiation waves can be made with a dropping head over the pool of water. Example of water is not actually being moved. The outward motion of the wave rather than being up and down motion of the water. Up and down motion is transverse right angle with the outward motion of the wave. The typical wave motion is called the transverse wave motion. The transverse wave spread out into the expanding circle. The ridge reach the edge of the pool. Much the same in the way of the transverse wave of the light spread up the sun, however, the waves in the pool are very slow, clumsy, in comparison to light with travel approximately 186,000 miles per second. Alright, light radiates from the source of all the directions totally absorbed and diverted with the substance figure 2-1. The line shown for the light source of the light bulb of the instant of the one of the light transverse into the direction of the wavefront or moving the lens are called light rays. Light rays wavefronts. Although single rays of light typically do not see the light rays shown with the illustration convenient with the method used to show the direction which light traveling at the point of the ray light may be illustrated in a straight line. Properties of light. While lights of the which travel in straight lines encounter the substance for the either reflect with absorb the transmitted refract the illustrated figure 2-2 the substance transmit almost with the light wave falling upon them said to be transparent. Transparent substance is one through which you can see clearly clear glass of the transparent because the transmitted light rays without diffusion with the view A figure 2-3 with no substance known but the perfectly transparent but many substances are nearly so with the substance through which some light rays can pass through the object cannot be seen clearly the radiant diffuse called translucent figure 2b figure 2-3 with the front frosted glass light bulb piece of the oil paper example of the translucent material for the substances that are unable to transmit any light rays are called opaque and figure 2c figure 2-3 opaque substances that reflect absorb all the light rays and fall upon them. Observe the incidental light rays from the far and the source of the glass reflected rays, sort of rays, transmitted rays, incident and transmitted light, incident light, transmitted light, translucent, incident light, opaque. All substances are light source of the visible only because they are reflected all of the some part of the light reflecting the luminous source. Example: the luminous source includes some gas, flame, the electrical light filament, any of the source of light energy. If the light is neither transmitted or reflected, absorbed, taken by needing light strikes the substance. Some absorption, some reflection always takes place. No substance completely transmit, reflects, or absorb light rays and reach the surface. Reflection of light. Reflected waves are simply those waves that neither transmitted nor absorbed or reflected from the surface of the medium. The encounter of the wave approach with the reflecting surface the mirror with the wave that is right with the surface is called the incident wave. The one that bounces back is called the reflected wave. The imaginary line perpendicular to the point at which the incident wave strikes the reflected surface is called the normal or perpendicular angle, and the angle between the incident wave normal is called the angle of the incident. The angle between the reflected wave and the normal is called the angle of reflection. Also, you have the reflection of the wave, the reflected wave, the I, the angle of reflection incident of the normal O, the incident wave reflecting surface of the perpendicular, the surface of the medium contact with the incident wave, and the smooth, the polish. Each reflected wave of the reflected back with the same angle, incident wave, the path of the wave of the reflected, the source of the form, the A will equal to one form of the path reaching the medium, conform to the law of the reflection, which say that the angle of the incident is equal to the angle of the reflected. The amount of the incident wave, the energy reflected to the surface depends on the nature of the surface of the angle of the which the wave strike with the surface. Amount of wave energy reflected with the creep of the angle of the incident, or creep of the reflection of the angle greater of the wave that is nearly parallel to the reflecting surface of the incident wave, the perpendicular with the surface of the more with the energy transmitted with the substance reflection of the energy is at least incident wave angle near the reflected most of the wave energy with the dull black surface reflects very little. Little waves, light waves obey the law of the reflecting light travels a straight line with the substance with a uniform density. For example, you can see the straight half of light rays are emitted with the narrow slit into the darkened room. The straight path of the beam is made with the visible illuminated dust particles suspended into the air. Light made to follow the surface of the mirror with the other reflecting surface. However, the direction of the beam changes sharply with the light can be reflected in almost any direction, depending on the angle the mirror is held. Refraction of light. When light passes through one medium and the medium have a different velocity of propagation, the speed wave can travel through the medium. The change of direction of the wave, the curve, the change of the direction of the wave enter the second medium. The curve of the refraction adds in the discussion reflection with the wave striking the boundaries of the the incident wave. The imaginary line perpendicular with the boundary is called the normal. The angle between the incident wave and the normal is called the angle of the incident. As the wave passes through the boundary is bent either by the toward end wave of the normal. The angle between the normal and the path of the wave through the second medium is the angle of the refraction. Light wave passing through the black of the glass shown figure 2.5 of the wave move points at point A to B. Constant speed incident wave the penetrate the glass boundary at the point B. The velocity of the wave slow down. The top of the wave is bent toward the normal. The wave takes path at the point B to C and through the glass comes the both reflected wave from the top surface of the incident wave. The lower surface of the wave passes from the glass to the air. The secondary boundary again refracted from the wave of the normal, taking the path from the point C to D. After passing through the last boundary, velocity and creep of the original velocity. The wave illustrated the refracted wave that can be toward the end with the normal from the normal, then depends the velocity of the wave through the different mediums. The broken lines between B and E. This path of the wave would travel in two mediums of air and glass same density. So for the instant wave, the normal air, the medium more dense and more than air glass normal refracted wave. An interesting condition is shown in figure 2.5 of the wave passing through the less since the more dense medium is bent to the normal. The angle of refraction R is less than the angle I. If it's I, likewise the wave passes the more dense of the less dense medium is with a normal angle of reflection one greater angle of incidence 1. Example of refraction apparent with the bending of the spoon with the immersed cup of the water bending seems to play with the surface of the water with the point where the change of the density of the spoon does not bend with the pressure of the water, but the light forming with the image of the spoon is bent half of the water medium high density, the air medium of the comparative low density. Alright, when without refraction light wave, the wood path straight line through the transparent substance without any change of the direction. Figure 2.5 shows the ray striking the glass with any of the angle other than perpendicular. Refracted, however, the perpendicular rays enter the glass normal. The surface of the glass into the air straight line. No refraction takes place. Our diffusion of the light reflect with the mirror with the angle of reflection equal to the angle of the incident of the light reflect with the piece of the plain white paper. However, the reflected beam of the scatter the diffuse shown figure 2.6 because the surface of the paper is not smooth. Reflected light is broken up into the many light beam with the reflected in all directions. So we have the diffusion of light in figure 2.6. Absorption of light. You have seen the light beam of the reflected diffuse that falls out one piece of the white paper. The light beam falls onto the piece of black paper. The black paper absorbs most of the light ray with very light, very reflected from the paper. The surface upon which light beams fall and then perfectly black. There is no reflection of the light. It is totally observed no matter what kind of surface of the light falls upon. Some of the light is absorbed. Your transmission of light through optical fiber. The transmission of light along optical fibers depend not only on the nature of light, but also the structure of the optical fiber. Two methods usually describe how light is transmitted along with the optical fiber. The first method, the ray theory, with the concept of the light reflection and refraction. Second method of the mode theory of the street light with the electromagnetic waves. You must first understand the basic optical properties of the materials used to make optical fibers. These properties affect how light is transmitted through the fiber. Basic optical material properties. Basic optical property of the material relevant to optical fibers is the index of refraction, the index of refraction, and measure the speed of the light with the optical medium, the index of refraction with the material with the ratio, speed light with the vacuum, speed light with the material itself. The speed of light, C, the free space vacuum of the to 10 to the 8th meters per second, and the speed of light with the frequency of light multiplied with the wavelength of light. When the light enters the fiber material and optical dense from the medium, the light travels at lower speed lower speed of v. Light will always travel slower with the fiber material than in air. Index refraction is given as your index refraction is equal to the speed of the light over the travel of the speed. Light travels at the speed. A light ray reflected, refracted, and counted with the boundary between the two different interference mediated. For example, the two steps that show the habits of the light ray within kind of the interference between glass and air. Index of the refraction of the glass. Index refraction of the glass, and one is 1.5. The index refraction of the air is 1.0. Air is 1.0. Glass is 1.5. Reflected ray show the incident ray, normal reflected ray. Let's assume the light ray into the ray, but it's traveling through the glass of the light ray with the count of the glass boundary. But the two resolve the first resolve the part of the ray with the reflected the back end of the glass. Second resolve the part of the ray with the refraction into the air with the air into the air with the begin bending of the light with the glass interface. The result difference between the index of the refraction and the index refraction 1 greater than the index refraction 2. The angle of the refraction is 2 will be greater than the angle of the incident 1. Shell. Snell's law of reflection uses the relationship between the incident and the refracted ray of the boundary. Snell's law is given as the index of refraction times the sin of the 1 over time equals the index refraction 2 times the sin of number 2. Instead of incident number 2, I guess. As the angle of the incident becomes larger than the angle of refraction, proof at 90 degrees at this point, no refraction is followed. The light ray will totally reflect back of the glass medium. Escape the condition of the total internal refraction angle at which the total internal refraction curve the call of the critical angle. Instead of the critical angle of the incident is shown in the figure 2a. The angle of the incident at 1 is greater than the critical angle of the light is totally reflected back into the glass medium. The critical angle incident is determined by the Snell's law of the critical angle. The given is the extent of the critical angle is equal to incident angle number 2 over the incident angle number 1. Show the air and glass at 1 and incident angle number 1. Glass incident 1.5. The optical angle, the angle of optical angle 90 indicates refraction incident normal reflected rays. The total internal reflection of the ideal situation. However, in reality, there's always some light energy that penetrates the boundary situation explained with the mode of the theory of the electromagnetic wave and theory of light. Basic structure of the optical fiber. The basic structure of the optical fiber consists of 3 parts: the coating, the core, the cladding, and the coating of the buffer or the buffering. The basic structure of the optical fiber shown figure 2 down to the core of the cylinder arrived with the dielectrical materials. Dielectrical material conducted with no electricity. Light propagates mainly along the core of the fiber. The core is generally made of glass. The core is described the head and radius of A, or radius of A, and index of the refraction. The core is surrounded with the layer of the material called the cladding. Even though the light would be propagating across the fiber core with a layer of cladding, material cladding does not perform such necessary functions. So you have your core cladding and coating of the buffer. The cladding of the material, the dielectrical material, the index refraction. 2. The index of the refraction of the cladding material of the core material. The cladding is generally made with glass or plastic cladding performs function in functions. Reduce the loss of light of the core with the surrounding air. Reduce the scattering of the loss of surface of the core. Protect the fiber from absorbing contaminants. It adds mechanical strength for extra protection of the cladding and close the additional layer of the cover. The coating of the buffer. Coating of the buffer is the layer of material used to protect the optical fiber. Physical damage material used to buffer the type of the plastic buffer is elastic in nature for the bed. Prevents absorption. Absorption is the buffer to prevent the optical fiber scattering off the cover of the microbends. Microbends occur when the optical fiber is placed on a rubber distorted surface. The microbends are discussed later in this chapter. Propagation of light along the fiber. The concept of light propagation of light along the optical fiber is described in theory. According to the first theory, light is described in a simple ray. The theory of the ray theory of the geometrical optics approach for the angel ray approach that get you a clear picture of the propagation of light along the fiber. The ray theory is used to approximate the light of acceptance for the gang with the property optical fiber is going to the secondary fiber that light. Describe the electromagnetic wave. The theory of the theory of the wave representation. Approach for the mode theory. Describe the behavior of the light with an optical fiber. The mode theory is used to describe the optical fiber property of the absorption, actuation, and dispersion of the fiber property to later in this property. This chapter. Ray theory. Type of the rays property given along with the optical fiber. The first type of the meridional waves. The meridional waves are the type of the axis of the optical fiber. The meridional waves are used to illustrate the basic transmission property of the optical fiber. The second type is called the Q rays. Q rays are the travel through the optical fiber without passing through its axis. Meridional waves can be classified of the bound or unbound waves. Bound rays remaining core propagated along the axis of the fiber. Bound rays can propagate through the fiber. The total internal for reflection. And unbound rays are refracted to the fiber core. Figure 210 for the possible path taken the bound and unbound rays and the index fiber. The core of the depth index fiber has index refraction of the N1, the cladding of the 6 steps, and the index of refraction number 2 lower than the first refraction. Figure 210 show the core cladding and interface with the imperfection core cladding interference will cause the part of the bounding ray to be refracted out of the core into the cladding. The light rays refracted. The cladding will eventually escape the fiber and generally mirroring rays will follow the reflection of the refraction. Unbound rays, incidental rays, cladding number 1, cladding number 2, core, and refraction bound rays. It's known that the bound rays probably give the fiber to do with internal for reflection. How is this? These light rays enter the fiber. The rays enter the fiber intersect with the core cladding and interfere with the angle with the greater than critical angle. Only there those rays that enter the fiber strike or the interface with these angles that propagate along the fiber. However, how the light is launched into the fiber shown in figure 2 level, the incidental ray that enters the fiber at the angle of the incident and reflective that enters this fiber to transmit the core cladding interface with the ray strike with the core cladding interface critical angle. Is totally reflected back in the core of the continuum to propagate along the fiber. The incidental ray that enters the fiber into the angle greater than the critical angle. The incidental ray number 2 is refracted into the fiber to transmit the core cladding interface. The second interfacing angle of the core cladding at the angle less than the critical angle is refracted into the cladding. Eventually, the light ray into the fiber core must be within the acceptance of the cone, defined by the angle of the angle of the incidence shown figure 212 angle. Instance A is defined by the acceptance angle of the acceptance angle. Instance A maximum angle exists if the fiber of light of the inch of the fiber is propagated with the value of the angle of the acceptance angle of the fiber property of the transmission condition. Angle greater or less angle less than the core number 1 known cladding number 2 highlight ray enter the optical fiber acceptance zone and air incident range loss cladding number 1 cladding number 2. The acceptance of the accepting angle related with the incidence of the core and cladding medium of the surround of the fiber. The relationship that is called the numerical aperture for the fiber. The numerical aperture for the NA measurement of the optical fiber to capture light. The numerical aperture for the used to define the acceptance of the cone of the optical fiber. Figure 212 illustrates the relationship between the angle refracted into the incident of the refraction of the fiber core number the refraction number 1 incident of the refraction of the fiber core number 2 and the index of the refraction of the surrounding medium number 0 by using this law the basic trigonometry relationship of the numerical aperture of the fiber is given numerical aperture is equal to the surrounding medium of the time of the descent of the angle of refraction equal to the number of the refraction number 1 squared minus the refraction number 2 squared to the 1/2 power. So the medium of the next fiber to large point with normally able to number the refraction is 1. The numerical aperture is simply equal to the sin of A. The numerical aperture for the convenient way to measure the light gathering ability of the optical fiber. You can measure sort of the fiber and power coupling efficiency high the normal numerical aperture for the give it the high sort of the fiber coupling with the efficiency sort of fiber. The coupling efficiency described in chapter 5 is equal to the numerical aperture for the range from the 0.2 to 0.29 fiberglass. The plastic fibers generally have the higher numerical aperture, and the numerical aperture of plastic fibers can be higher than 0.5. In addition, the numerical aperture commonly used for the specified with the multi-mode fiber, however, the smaller the diameter shows for the single node fiber of the ray theory, with the breakdown of the ray theory is described only the direction of the plane. We take for the fiber of the ray theory, eliminate for any part property of the plane wave with the interfere with the transmitting of the light along the fiber of the reality of the plane waves interfere with each other through only a certain type of the rays able to propagate the optical fiber. Optical fiber support only a specific number of the guided modes in small core fiber. The number of the modes supported and is one or only a few modes. Mode theory is used to describe the type of the plane waves that is also propagated along the optical fiber. Alright, skew rays. A possible path of the propagation of skew rays is shown in figure 213. Figure 213 view A provides the angle view, and view B provides the front view. The skew rays propagate without passing through the center of the axis. Acceptance angle of the skew rays, the longitude of the acceptance angle meridional waves. The conditions will explain what the screw rays outnumber the meridional wave. The screw rays are often used for this calculation light, except for the optical fiber. The addition of the screw rays increases the amount of light capacity of the fiber. The large numerical aperture of the fiber is increased. The amount may be significant. So for the angled view, the front view, and the additional screw rays increase the amount of the loss of the fiber. The screw tends to propagate near the edge of the fiber core. A large portion of the number of the screw rays trapped in the fiber of the core with a conservative leaky ray. Leaky rays are predicted with old reflective of the core cladding of the boundary. However, these rays are partially refractive because of the core of the nature of the fiber boundary. Mode of the theory should describe the type of leaky ray loss. Mode theory. The mode theory along with the ray theory would describe the propagation of light along with the optical fiber. The mode theory would describe properties of the light the ray through the enable to explain the mode theory of the electronic wave. They would describe the propagation of light among the fiber instead of the side of the electromagnetic wave. Describe the fiber modes. Plane waves. The mode wave of theory suggests the light wave can be represented with a plane wave. The plane wave describe the direction and amplitude of the wavelength of the propagation. Plane wave is in wave those over the surface of the concert favor the infinite parallel planes normal to the direction of propagation of the planes having the same favor called the wavefront. The wavelength is of the plane wave is given the wavelength is equal to the speed of the light in vacuum over to the frequency of the light and times the index of the reflection wave wave medium. Figure 214 shows the direction wave from the plane wave propagation. Plane wave the wavefronts propagate with a fiber similar to the light wave. Over there are all not all wavefront wavefronts. The fiber angle is less than equal the critical angle of light, except when propagated along the fiber. Wavefronts undergo the change of the phase to prevent the successful transfer of light along the fiber. Wavefronts shift the light source of the direction plane wave propagation. Wavefronts are required to maintain the phase of the light transmitted along with the fiber to the wavefronts of the core of the optical fiber shown in figure 215. Only the wavefront inch of the fiber angle left equal the critical angle of the propagated along the fiber. The wavefront undergoes gradual change with the travel down. The fiber as to change along the wavefront, the reflected wavefront must remain phase of the wave transfer. Reverse and the fiber twice the reflected twice the distance. Reverse shown the view position point A and B with the figure 215. The reflected wave the point A and B with the phase of the total amount of phase collected inter between 2 and pi radian of the propagating wave is not phase. They eventually disappear. The wavefront disappear because of the destructive interface the interference. The wavefronts and the phase of the interference interfere with the wavefronts of the outer phase of the interference. It is the reason why only a finite number of modes can be propagated along the fiber. Wavefront for the propagation along with the optical fiber. Incident wave of the cladding and core with the z direction. The plane wave that repeat the travel along the fiber axis. The direction of the plane wave that travel to assume the z direction from the 215. The plane wave repeat the distance is equal to the wavelength times the center of the plane wave also repeat periodically. The frequency is equal to 2 times pi over the center of the reflection times the wavelength divided by the wavelength. The quantity B is defined as the propagation constant of the fiber. The wavelength change of the wave of the propagation constant must also be changed to give the mode. The change of the wavelength can prevent the mode from the propagation along with the fiber. The mode is no longer mode bound to the fiber. This mode is said to be cut off. The mode is bound with one wavelength not existing with no longer wavelength at which the mode see the be bound with the cutoff of the wavelength for that mode. However, the optical fiber always able to propagate at least one mode of the mode is referred to the fundamental mode of the fiber. The fundamental mode that can never be cut off with the wavelength of the prevent the next higher mode from the propagating with the cut off of the length of the fiber. Optical fiber of the cut off the wavelength the longer wavelength is called the single mode fiber. The optical fiber that operates below the cut off wavelength is called the multi-mode single mode. The multi-mode optical fibers are discussed later in the chapter. Fiber propagation constant plane wave. The function of the wavelength mode of the change of the propagation constant from wave is called dispersions. Shift the propagation constant of the different waves called the chromatic dispersion. The change of the propagation constant of the different mode called the module dispersion. These dispersions are called the light pulse pre as it goes down with the fiber. Some of the dispersion all the types of fiber dispersion is discussed later in the chapter. Input, pulse, output, pulse modes. The guy with the electrical magnetic wave is called the modes of the optical fiber. Maxwell equation that describes the electromagnetic wave of the modes that have the two components. Two components, electrical field X, Y, and Z. Magnetic field H, X, Y, and Z with the electrical field with the magnetic field H with the right angle of each other. The move to travel of the optical fiber is said to be transverse. Transverse motion shown in figure 217 propagated along the axis of the fiber. The move field, the pattern for the shown figure 217 is said to be transverse electric modes. Electric field perpendicular to the different propagation of the magnetic field, the direction of the propagation. And the other type of the transverse mode, transverse magnetic mode, the transverse magnetic mode opposite with the transverse electric mode, the transverse magnetic mode, the magnetic field perpendicular to the direction of the propagation of the electric field, the direction of the propagation. Figure 217 show the transverse electric modes. Right, clad core and core transverse electric mode 1, 2, 3, and 4 electrical field. Transverse electrical mode field pattern shown in Figure 217 indicate order of each of the mode. They order each of the mode indicate with the number of the field maximum with the core with the fiber. For example, the transverse electric mode 0 has one field maximum. The electrical maximum the same with the wave gave the core of the core. Letting boundary transverse electric mode 0 is the fundamental mode of the lowest order standing wave. Numerical field maximum and the outer of the mode is higher. The general mode within more than field. A few 5 to 10 field maximums refer to the high order modes. The order of the mode is some of the things away from make the axis of the fiber. Figure 211 illustrates the light rays travel down the fiber. Light rays indicate the direction of the wave from the high order modes. Cross the axis of the fiber. Steeper angle of the lower or higher order modes shown in Figure 218. Incident wave of the higher order modes, the core cladding in the lower order modes. Before we progress, let's refer to Figure 217 of the mode of the combined with the core of the fiber, the mode and partially with the cladding material of the lower order modes, perpendicular with the cladding of the slightly lower order modes. Electrical magnetic fields are concentrated near the center of the fiber that have the higher order modes penetrate the rhythm of the cladding material. The higher order modes, their electrical magnetic field is distributed more toward the outer edge of the fiber. This penetration low order, high order mode of the cladding region indicates the sum of the portion refracted out of the core of the refracted mode may be trapped in the cladding due to dimension of the cladding region. The mode trap the cladding region with the cladding mode of the core cladding move trapped through the fiber. The more coupling occur with the coupling more mode of the coupling exchange of the power between the two modes. The mode coupling is cladding a result of the loss of power from the core modes. In addition, bounding reflective mode, the leaky mode, the leaky modes are similar to the leak of the ray. The leaky mode, the loss of power propagated along with the fiber. The mode of the retention remain with the core of the mode with a certain boundary condition that may be rebound with the competent B meets the boundary codes. Two times pi to the second refraction over the wavelength is greater than the propagation. Bounding is greater is less than 2 times pi to the refraction angle number 1 over the wavelength. The refraction index refraction 1 and 2 for the curve of the cladding respectively. Propagation constant known as smaller 2 times the refraction angle index refraction number 2 over the pi wavelength. Power leaks out of the core into the cladding. Generally move the leak of the cladding and loss of a few centimeters. However, the leak modes can carry a large amount of the power in short fiber fibers. Normalized frequency, the electromagnetic wave the optical fiber that describes the fiber. Normalized frequency determines how many moves the fiber can be supported. Normalized frequency dimension quantity. The normalized frequency is also related to the fiber cutoff wavelength. Normalized frequency V is as final. V is normalized frequency is equal to 2 times pi times A over the wavelength, or the incident refraction number 1 squared to minus the incident refraction number 2 squared to the exponent 1/5. The incident refraction core number 1 refraction incident refraction number 2. Getting in for an index refraction A of the core diameter of the wavelength of the light of the air number of the mode of the exist fiber function of the velocity and normal frequency. The value of the normal frequency increase the number of the mode support with the fiber increase the optical fiber single mode multi-mode can be supported with a different number of the number of the mode support with a single mode multi-mode fiber discussed later in the chapter. Alright, optical fiber types. Optical fiber types are carried by the structure of their property of the transmission. Basically, optical fibers classified in 2 types. The first type with the single mode fiber, the second type with the fiber. Each the name and the optical fibers classified the number of the mode the propagated along with the fiber. Previously explained structure for the wire can permit the restricted mode and propagated with the fiber. Basic structural difference of the core side with the single mode fibers are manufactured with the same material. Multi-mode fibers with single mode fibers manufactured with the same fabrication process as multi-mode fibers. Single mode fibers. The core side of the single mode fibers are small, with the core side diameters are typically around 8 to 10 micrometers. The fiber core with the side of the allow fundamental lower order mode of the propagated around 1300 nanometers wavelength. Single the mode of the fiber propagated with only one mode because of the core side of the approach of the optimal wavelength of the value of the normalized frequency parameters V related to the core side of the mode propagation angles in single mode fiber mode fibers normalized frequency is less than or equal to 2.405. The normalized frequency is 2.405. The single mode of the fibers propagated with the fundamental mode down the fiber core, while the higher order mode of those including low normal velocity normal frequencies value is negative 1.0. Most of the power is propagated with the cladding material power transmitted. The cladding easily lost the fiber band value of the normal frequency should remain near 2.405 level. Single mode fibers have lower single loss of the higher information capacity bandwidth of the multi-mode fiber. The single mode fiber is capable of transferring higher amounts of the data due to the low fiber dispersion. Basic dispersion, spreading the light with the light propagated along the fiber. Dispersion, mechanical single mode fiber, to describe the more detail later in the chapter. Single loss depending on the original operational wavelength, and single mode fiber with the wavelength can increase with decrease. Loss curve of the fiber ending in the single mode fiber that operate with wavelength larger than the cutoff wavelength. Low or more power bands for the fiber band, lower power scale, low radius of the cladding, which loss of the fiber band. General single mode fibers are considered to be low loss fibers, which are increased system bandwidth and length. Multi-mode fibers. This is named the imply the multi-mode fiber is propagated with more than one mode. Multi-mode fibers can propagate with over 100 modes. The number of the modes propagated depends on the core size, numerical aperture for the core size of the numerical aperture, increase the number of the modes, increase the typical value of the fiber core size of the numerical aperture from 5 to 100 meters or 0.2 0 to 0.29 respectively. The large core size for the higher of the numerical aperture for the head several different lines for the multi-mode way. The more either the higher numerical aperture for the larger core size to make it easier for the have fiber connected to this fiber splicing the core alignment between becomes less critical than other ranges of multi-mode fiber to permit the use of light emitting diodes. Single mode fiber is typically the most layered diodes. Light emitting diodes are cheaper, less complex, less longer light emitting diodes to prefer for the most applications. Multi-mode fibers also have some different disadvantages of the number of the modes, increase the effect of the module dispersion, increase the module dispersion, and intermodule dispersion. Means mode derived in the fiber to end with a slightly different name. The type of difference because of the light pulse with the spread of the module dispersion affected the system. The bandwidth fiber manufacturers of the core diameter numerical aperture with an index profile property of the multi-mode field with the maximum system bandwidth. Alright, property of the optical fiber transmission. The purpose of the behind with the transfer of the light energy and light among the optical fiber discussed earlier in the chapter. Learned the propagation of the light depends on the nature of the light, with the structure of the optical fiber. However, the description that describes the optical fiber, the effect of the system, the performance. In this case, system performance deal with the signal off of the bandwidth. The signal off of the system, the bandwidth is described the amount of the data transmitted over the single specified length of the fiber to many optical fiber properties. Increase the signal off of the reduced system bandwidth. The most important properties of the system performance and fiber actuation and dispersion. Actuation reduces the amount of the optical fiber transmitted by the fiber. Actuation control of the distance the optical signal and pulse that can be traveled and shown in figure 219. Once the power of the optical pulse to reduce the point with where receiving is unable to detect the pulse of the error of the curve of the actuation mainly result of the light absorption, scattering, and the bending of the law of the dispersion for the optical pulse as it travels along the fiber. The spreading of the signal pulse to reduce the system bandwidth of the information carrying capacity of the fiber. The dispersion limit is fast information is transferred shown in figure 219. The errors are curved of the receiver. They're unable to distinguish between the input signal and input pulse is coupled by the spreading of each of the pulse effects for the actuation and dispersion. Curve of the pulse travel the length of the fiber shown in figure 220. Actuation reducer and dispersion spreads the pulse. Distance travel the input pulse, the output fade and pulse. In addition to the fiber actuation dispersion, other optical fiber property affect with the system performance. Fiber property, the module noise, the module broadening and polarization can reduce the system performance. Modulation, pulse broadening, and polarization too complex to discuss. Introductory level material, however, you should be able to aware of the actuation dispersion of not only the fiber optic effect of the performance. Actuation of the optical fiber is coupled with the absorption, scattering, and the bending of the loss. Actuation of the loss of the optical fiber light travel along the fiber. Single actuation defined with the ratio of the optical input line power to optical output power. Optical input power is powered injected to the fiber. The optical source of the optical output power is power received the fiber end of the optical detector. The following equation defined the signal actuation of the unit length. The actuation is equal to 10 times the length of times the log to 10 times over the input power over the output power. Single actuation along relationship with the length expressed in kilometers. Therefore, the unit of its actuation decibels in kilometers. Previously stated the actuation coupled the absorption, scattering, bending left of each of the mechanism left the influence of the fiber material property of the fiber structure. However, the loss also present the fiber connector's life. The coupler loss discussed in chapter 4, but the present discussion removed the relative of the optical fiber actuation properties. Absorption. The absorption is a major cost of the single off of the optical fiber. Absorption is defined with a portion of the actuation result of the conversion of optical power over the other energy forms such as heat. Absorption of optical fibers is explained with three factors: imperfection of the atomic structure of the fiber material, the intrinsic or basic fiber material property of the extrinsic presence of the impurity fiber material properties. Imperfection atomic structure of the absorption of the presence of the missing molecule with the oxygen defect. The abortion also due to the diminishing diffusion of hydrogen molecule with the class fiber. The sum of the intrinsic extrinsic material property may couple the absorption. They discuss them further. Intrinsic absorption. Intrinsic absorption coupled with the basic with the fiber material property of the optical fiber the way absolutely appear with no imperfection from possibilities. Then all the absorption would be intrinsic absorption set with the minimum level of absorption. Fiber optic silicate, pure glass fibers are either the predominantly silica fibers are either the move because of the low intrinsic material absorption wavelengths of the operation. Silica glass wavelengths operation range of 700 nanometers to 1600 nanometers. A figure with a figure showing one show for the level actuation wavelength of the operation operation between two intrinsic absorption regions. First, the region the ultraviolet region with a between 400 nanometer wavelengths, and the second region is infrared at 2000 above 2000 nanometer wavelengths. It shows the actuation, Rayleigh scattering, ultraviolet absorption tail wavelengths, growing nanometers infrared absorption tail. Intrinsic absorption, ultraviolet region with the electronic absorption band, basically absorption occurs with the light for particular particle photon interact with electronic site with the higher the energy level of the the ultralight absorption is banded with the shown figure 221. We cover the intrinsic absorption and infrared of the infrared region, the character of the vibration figure, the atomic bond, silicon glass absorption, called the vibration, silicon oxygen bonds, interaction between the variation of the bonds, electromagnetic field of the optical signal, called the intrinsic absorption, light energy transfer of the electromagnetic field of the bomb, the tail of the infrared absorption, being shown figure 221. Intrinsic absorption is covered the impurities introduced in the fiber material, the trace material, the purity of the iron, nickel, chromium, and introduced the fiber during the fabrication. Intrinsic absorption called the electronic transition of the metal ions from one energy level to the other. The extrinsic absorption also occurs with the hydroxyline ions introduce the fiber of the water in silica glass, the silicon hydroxide bond, the bond with the fundamental absorption of 2700 nanometers with the hadronic harmonics overturned with the fundamental absorption occur with the region of the operation of the harmonic increase the extrinsic absorption of 1383 nanometers, 1250 nanometers, and 950 nanometers. The figure 221 show the presence of the three silicon hydroxyl ion harmonic of the level of the hydroxyl ion absorption is also indicated. The absorption peak with the defined with the region window of the preferred operation. The first window is the center of the 850 nanometer, the second window of the center of the 1300 nanometer, the third window is the center of the 1550 nanometer. The fiber optic operates with wavelength defined one of these windows. The amount of the water and impurities present with the fiber should be less than a few parts per billion. Fiber actuation called the extrinsic absorption and effect with the level of impurities of the present of the fiber. The impurity of the fiber is reduced due to the fiber actuation reduced. One of the window is reduced. Scattering off the cover the interaction of light with density fluctuation within the change in the fabric. The density change of the produce the optical fiber manufactured during the manufacture region of the higher and lower molecular density area of the relatively average density of the fiber are created. Light traveling through the fiber interact with the density or area of the round shown figure 222 with the light is partially scattered in all directions. The density fluctuation cladding and core cladding. Commercial fiber is operating with a 700 nanometer, 1600 nanometer wavelength main source of the law of the cover of the Rayleigh scattering is main law for the mechanism between the ultraviolet and infrared regions shown in figure 221. The Rayleigh scattering occurs with the side of the intensity and fluctuation and the deliberate effect of the left of the one tenth of the operating wavelength of the light, and the loss caused by the Rayleigh scattering is proportional fourth power of the wavelength of 1 to the wavelength to the fourth power. There is wavelength for increase of the light. It's called the Rayleigh scattering. Decrease the side of the defect greater than 1/10 of the wavelength light of the scattering mechanism is called the Mees scattering. Mees scattering is called the large effect of the fiber core scattering. A lot of the fiber core with the form of commercial effect fiber. The effect of the Mees scattering is insignificant. Optical fibers manufacture very large effects. Or bending loss. Bending of the fibers also called the actuation bending loss. Classified according to the bending of the radius, the curvature band, micro bending loss with the micro bend. With the micro bends are small microscopic bend with the fiber axis that occur mainly with the fiber is cable. The micro bends where they have the larger radius of the curvature relative to the fiber diameter. Micro bend loss very important law of the mechanism. Fiber loss caused by the micro bending can still occur even if the fiber is correctly cabled correctly. During the installation, if the fibers are bent too sharp, the macro bend loss will occur. The micro bend loss of the cover will small discontinue the imperfection within the fiber to uneven the code of the application proper to cable to perceive the increase of the micro bend. External force, but they also serve for the micro bends. External force that deform the cable jacket that surround the fiber to become the cause of the small bending of the fiber. The micro bend chamber the path of the propagating made modes take as shown figure 223 micro mode bend loss increase the actuation because of the low order modes becoming coupled with the higher order modes with natural losses. External force cladding and imperfection cladding. Micro bend loss losses. Macro bend losses observed with the fiber bend radius coverage of the large compared with the fiber determining the band of the bend to become the great source of the loss of the radius coverage of the left, the travel of the enemy of the lies of propagation inside of the bend travel the short distance at the outer side of the maintain the phase of the light with the mode phase of the velocity must increase with the fiber band with the less the critical radius of the mode phase velocity most critical small speed greater than the speed of the light. However, the impossible to exceed the speed of the light. The conditions can cause the sum of the light within the fiber to convert it with the high order mode. The high order modes that are lost and then radiated out of the fiber. Fiber sensitivity. Bending alpha can be reduced the refractive index of the core and creep the fiber sensitivity decrease the sensitivity of the curve of the diameter overall the fiber increase the height with the increase of the fiber core with the diameter increase the fiber sensitivity fiber with the large core size the propagate with more modes the additional modes tend to be loosely dispersion. Alright, dispersion. There are two different types of dispersion with the optical fiber. They are type of the intermodule dispersion, intermodule chromatic dispersion occur with all type of the fiber, the intermodule and module dispersion curve with the multi-mode fibers. Each have the dispersion mechanism leaves the pulse spreading the pulse spread energy is overlap. The condition shown in figure 224 spreading of the optical pulse travel the fiber limits of the information capacity of the fiber. Pulse spreading overlap. Intermodule dispersion. Intermodule chromatic dispersion depends primarily on the fiber material. The two types of the intermodule dispersion. First type of the material dispersion. Second type of the wavelength dispersion. Intermodule dispersion curve because of the different color of the light travel through the different material with the different waveguide the structure at different speeds. Material dispersion curve because of the sphere spreading of the light depends on the wavelength interaction reflected the index of the fiber core with a different wave travel at a different speed of the fiber material with a different wavelength the light impulses with the end of the fiber at one time and the fiber at a different time with the material dispersion is a function of the source of the spectral width. The spectral width is the range of the wavelength that propagate the edge of the fiber. The material dispersion is less of a longer wavelengths. Waveguide dispersion curve over the propagation constant of the function size of the fiber core relative to the wavelength operation. Waveguide dispersion also curve because of the light with the propagate differently the core of them cladding. Multi-mode fibers, wave dispersion, material dispersion, basically, so the properties multi-mode waveguide dispersion generally, some all compare with the material dispersion. Waveguide dispersion is usually neglected, however, the single nodes and single mode fibers of material waveguide dispersion are interrelated. Total dispersion present with single mode fibers may be minimized rating material of the waveguide property depending on the waveguide over the operation. Or intermodule dispersion, intermodule dispersion cover the input light with the pulse spread of the input light pulse with the group of the module with the mode propagated along the fiber the light energy distributed with all them among the modes is delayed with a different amount of the pole spread the cover each of the mode with the propagated along the fiber at different speeds since the modes travel to different directions. Some of the modes travel long distance. Module dispersion cover each mode travel to different distance over the same time the span. They shown figure 225 of the mode the light path of the inch of the fiber the one time exists the fiber at different times in addition to the cause of the light pole the spread of the length of the fiber increase module dispersion increases. Mode enters at the same time the distance traveled each mode over the same time span with the core cladding and the modes at existing different times. Module dispersion dominant source of the dispersion multi-mode fiber. The module dispersion does not exist the single mode fiber. The single mode fiber is propagated the only fundamental mode, but therefore the single mode fibers exhibit the lowest amount of the total dispersion. Single mode fibers also exhibit the highest possible bandwidth. Chapter 2 Summary.